Hello and welcome to another Sprues and Brews video. Today we are looking at Liber Mechanicum for Warhammer The Horus Heresy. So first of all I want to say a massive thanks to Games Workshop for sending us an early copy of Liber Mechanicum for free to review and have a look at on the channel today. So yeah, if you're new to The Horus Heresy, essentially the second edition of the game was released earlier in the summer, and alongside it we had two army books, one for the loyalists and one for the traitors. So what this book is essentially the army book for the Mechanicum units. Now what's cool about this book is it actually covers three lists really. We've got the Tagmata, which is the kind of main military of the Mechanicum. We have got the Titan Legions, and we've also got the Questoris Knights as well. So basically your rules for your standard Mechanicum army: doing a full knight army, and you can do a solely knight army as well, which is really cool. And then also the war engines of the Titan Legions, and be able to take those in your games as well. And they are all contained within the book. Very, very similar format to the other Liber volumes, the traitor and the kind of loyalist books. And we're going to see these come out over the next few months. I think the next one on the schedule that Games Workshop posted was the Imperialis one, which I think will contain the Warp Cults Militia and the Solar Auxilia. So that's one that I'm looking forward to. Then obviously we've still got the Demons of the Ruinstorm on the way, and the Talons of the Emperor. I do wonder if for both of those books we see a PDF this year, because I don't think we're going to see them before the end of the year, but Games Workshop did say that for those other factions there will be free PDFs that get released as well, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, without further ado, let's crack this open and have a look at what is inside this mighty volume. So before we crack on as well, I will say that I have done a full write-up over on spruesandbrews.com as well, where I go into a bit more detail and have a look at all of the various units and stuff, so make sure to check that out. But yeah, basically we start off with a little bit of lore, not masses of lore, but we get a couple of pages just talking about the Mechanicum, and then we go straight into the army list. If I've got one criticism of the book, I'd have liked to have seen a bit more lore. We did in the core book, of course, but it would have been nice to kind of go into a little bit more detail, especially as it's a slightly kind of slimmer book than the traitor and the loyalist books. But yeah, but essentially this is another army list that you can take in your games of Horus Heresy. Force organisation chart is exactly the same as the one for the Space Marines, with the same optional Lord of War detachment and the same allied detachment. Where things get mixed up a little bit is the Titan Legions and the Knights get their own special organisation charts, and we'll see those a little bit later. But yeah, it gives you some options on your list construction. Of course, what you can do with this book as well is take an allied detachment of Mechanicum and attach them to your main Astartes army, which is actually quite a nice way of kind of slowly collecting the force. At the minute, you know, all the models in this book, outside of the Knights, are resin, so they're quite expensive from Forge World. And I imagine over the course of the next 12 months or so, maybe we'll see some of these kits kind of re-released in plastic, which would be really, really ace to see. But until then, it is a little bit more expensive than collecting a Space Marine Legion. So what you can do is start with an allied detachment, take a single HQ, take a single troops choice, and then you can grow it from there, and eventually you can get to the size where you can then take it as a primary detachment. So lots of options you can do. The book does also spell out that this is the Mechanicum at the time of the start of the Horus Heresy. So there's no Dark Mechanicum in here as such. We do get some traitor characters who will eventually obviously become Dark Mechanicum, but the kind of construction of the forces is as they were at the outbreak of the heresy, and it does kind of tease that future supplements might delve into the more unorthodox, let's say, structure that some of the traitor forces have later on in the heresy. So that's quite exciting. So yeah, we get some Warlord traits for the army. There's 3 Mechanicum ones in addition to the 3 core ones. So a Soul of Cold Iron, Basically it makes people able to do stuff while they're pinned. So units within 6 inches that are pinned can still move and declare charges. They can only fire snapshots, and the army can make an additional reaction within their opponent's movement phase. So that's pretty cool. The logic of victory, if the Warlord doesn't shoot, then when they make reactions, they're at +1 weapon skill, +1 ballistic skill, +3 initiative or +3 movement, depending on which reaction they've done. So that's pretty cool. They get an additional reaction in each phase too. So basically you sacrifice your shooting for a turn in order to do 2 reactions in every phase, which is really cool. And again, with the increased weapon skill, ballistic skill and movement, yeah, you're going to be able to do some cool stuff with that. The final Mechanicum Warlord trait is the Science of Slaughter, and in this one basically each turn that you're locked in combat after the first one you get a cumulative +1 weapon skill and +1 strength. So he just keeps getting stronger and stronger the longer that he's locked in combat, which is really, really cool. It resets back to normal once he leaves the combat, but it means that in a prolonged fight your Warlord's going to be able to put up a bit of a fight, so that's pretty ace. The Mechanicum Advanced Reaction's really fun too. Any unit that's got an independent character in, if an enemy unit targets them and wants to shoot them, you can make this advanced reaction, and essentially all eligible Mechanicum units within 12 inches can shoot at the firing squad before they get to roll any dice, which is crazy good. Now there's just a couple of things that you just need to bear in mind about that. The various automata units by default cannot make reactions. So your Castellix robots, your Thanatar siege robots, all that kind of stuff, by default cannot make reactions. But there is a unit in this book that can allow them to make reactions. So again, there's some cool stuff you can do. But even with your kind of non-automatum units, there's there's a lot of firepower you can return back using that. So that's really ace, really. So going through the units in HQ, we've got a 0-1 choice of an Archmagos Prime, and again on an Abeyant. They've got the rule feudal hierarchy, which means that you can't take one on foot and one on Abeyant. It's basically you have one in your army or none. You can't have multiples. This is essentially your kind of traitor level guy. You can give them all sorts of different war gear and weapons. They've got a pretty good stat line. One of the other things that they get is Order of the High Techno Arcana, and we'll have a look at those when we get to the index in a bit. But essentially they do some fun stuff with army construction, extra rules. There's ways to unlock different units as like troops or corps and the like. So yeah, they're a little bit like your Right to War, I guess, for the Mechanicum. So you've got them. We've also got the Amagos Dominus, which is a more, I guess, console level version. There's no limit to how many of these you can take. Again, for that advanced reaction, it's probably quite nice to take a few independent characters to scatter through your units to kind of enable that reaction. So again, range of weapons they can take, and you know, for a kind of lesser hero, they've got an alright stat line too. A lot of your units have got Battlesmith, Cyberthurgis. We'll see those in a bit. They kind of Battlesmith's in the core book and essentially lets you repair things, but there's some advanced Battlesmith things that a lot of units in this book can do. The Cyberthurgist stuff basically works a bit like psychic powers, but these are things that you can do where you sacrifice shooting in order to get an ability or buff a unit or do a particularly powerful attack. And again, there's certain ones that they can pick from when they unlock them, so that's pretty cool. We also get a Loyalist HQ unit. This guy is unique to the Loyalists, and he has a Warlord trait that allows units within 6 inches to move through cover. He can take his own like little bespoke Skillix Guardian Automata kind of mana pool with him. He's pretty fun. I'm a traitor player, so I'm not going to be using him, but a good option. Moving on to the elites, we've got the Tech Priest Auxilia. These are a really cool unit. They're battlesmiths, so they can go around fixing stuff, and they have a little kind of entourage of servo automata with them as well. What's really nice about them is that you can upgrade them to do different things. So you can make him an engine seer, in which case their battlesmith activates on a 4+ instead of a 5+. You can make them lack moralis, and they basically improve the feel no pain of your tech thrall units, which you'll see a little bit, who have already had a bit of an improvement in their save. So essentially you can get your tech thralls up to a 4+ feel no pain. Or reductor, which basically gives them thunder and wrecker, and yeah, they can have conversion beamers or graviton imploders and go around blowing stuff up. So that's a fun elite option for them. With the Arcator Magistratum, these are cool. This is a loyalist only unit whose role is to kind of like seek out tech heresy. So yeah, really cool, kind of like assassin, anti demon engine, I guess, unit. It's a 0/1 choice, but you can have them accompanied by a Vorax Battle Automator Maniple or an Arlatax Battle Automator Maniple. There's a little kind of like bodyguard unit with them. We've also got the Domitar Battle Automator. This is, I guess, the closest thing in the book to the stat line of a Contemptor Dreadnought, really. Toughness 7, 5 wounds, so they're quite tough, 3+ save, and an Atomantic Deflector. Pretty cool, pretty brutal in combat. What they haven't got is the brutal rule on their fists, so you've got to be careful, because in a straight fight with Contemptors and the like, you're going to be taking a lot more damage. So these are a good one to go bullying, you know, units of Marines and force and things off objectives and the like. For facing off other tanks, there's other things you can do with them. You then get the Myrmidon Secutor Host. These are really cool. 4 wounds apiece, toughness 5, so they're quite resilient, and they can be loaded up with a load of awesome weapons. So phased plasma fusils, Volkite chargers, graviton guns. They can take 2 of whatever selection of weapons they want, and they don't count as twin linked, you just get an additional weapon. So there's a lot of shots that these guys can throw out. The phased plasma fusel, off the top of my head, get 3 shots each with breaching on 4+ and AP 3 as standard. So these can very much be a bit of a Space Marine killer unit, so I quite like them. Moving on to the troops choices, we've got the Tech Thralls, cheap and cheerful at 45 points. They've got a fairly rubbish stat line. Their Laslocks have got extra shots now though, so they've got 2 shots each, which is pretty good. I mean, you're only ballistic skill 2, so I wouldn't kind of bank on it. They do have the all-important line keyword as well, so they are a scoring unit, and you can take them up into squads of up to 30 now as well, which is pretty cool. So you can have a big cheap blob to sit on objectives. What makes them good in that role is base, they now have Feel No Pain 5+, and put a Tech Priest near them with the right upgrade, and they've got a 4+ Feel No Pain. So really good big blobby unit to just sit on objectives and weather some firepower. And you know, 30 Tech Thralls, 60 shots, even at ballistic skill 2, you're going to get some hits. So yeah, that's a nice little unit for your opponent to chew through. Phalanx I really like as well. So these are also line, and these are kind of your kind of human-sized robot things. They're not automata, so they can do reactions. They've got cool jetpacks, so I think they get to move 12 inches, shoot, and then move another 6 inches. And again, they can have some really cool weapons on them as well. So I really rate these guys. Toughness 5, 3 wounds each. They're quite a resilient unit too. I think some big blobs of these could do some serious business, especially with that ability to move forward, shoot, and then maybe move on to an objective. Gives them some real utility in the army. So really, really like them. I think they're fun. We've then got the Skillex Guardian Automator. These are like an aggressive combat unit. Multiple attacks. They're pretty good in a fight. Essentially, if they wound 1 step better than they would be as per the profile. So say they're strength 4, fighting toughness 4 Space Marines. Normally they'd be wounding on a 4. Because of that rule that kicks in, they're actually wounding on a 3. So yeah, they're pretty fun. I quite like those guys. And again, they're a line unit as well, so they can score. We've then got the Castellex, awesome big stompy robot, everybody's favourite. The stat lines shifted around a little bit. They're now toughness 6 and strength 7, so they've got a bit more punch, but the toughness has come down a little bit, making them slightly easier to kill. 4 wounds, 3+ save, and an automatic deflector. What they don't have is the line rule, so you cannot score with these default. However, again, there are ways of making them scoreable. Pretty cool. If you're not using the ability that makes them line, for capturing the objective, you're probably better off with one of the other units. Again, it's going to be which of those different rights that you lean into. If you are taking that one, again, a big unit of these, you can take up to 5 in a squad. Really tough unit to shift an objective, so they're pretty fun. Watch out for dreadnoughts and the like, because with the brutal rule, a dreadnought can probably go through a unit of these, so just be careful with that, because you're going to take quite a bit of damage from them. And again, there's not a lot of brutal within this entire book, so you're going to have to do different things rather than just throw a big robot or a dreadnought or something to deal with it. There's some fun other options that they get. We then get the Trios Armoured Conveyor. Really good transport, 135 points. It's armour 14, 12, 12, and it comes with a flare shield as default for your basic transport, so it's going to be really, really hard to crack open. Movement 12. This is going to keep you guys safe until they get to where they need to be on the battlefield, so again, that's really, really good to see. Moving on to the fast attack, we've got some fun stuff. The Arlatax Battle Automator Maniple. These guys have got Power Blade Arrays, which is a cool close combat weapon. They've got a Utan Jump Booster, which I think off the top of my head allows them to move 10 inches. I forget, there's different jump packs now that the various units have, so there isn't just like a standard generic catch-all one, where they all do slightly different things, which is pretty fun. It's a very similar role to them is the Ursarax, but instead they're armed with Lightning Claws or Power Fists. So yeah, similar kind of roles to these guys, scouting forward and kind of picking on some units. We've got the Vorax Battle Automator Maniple. This is quite a cheap one, 65 each. They've got scouts, so you can get them into position. They're alright. I don't think they're the most amazing one. They've got lightning guns, which is pretty cool, and they've got those Power Blade Arrays. Strength 6, Toughness 5, 3 wounds and 3+ save, and the deflector again makes them quite a tough unit to chew through as well, which is pretty handy. What I really like though is the Voltarax. So this is the big, you know, the Death Guard flying thing, the plague drone thing, bloat drone. This is basically kind of what this might have looked like before it kind of fell to evil. And yeah, this is a really, really good unit. With its thrusters, I believe it moves 16 inches, which is really, really good. And then it just annihilates stuff with its arc blasters. With those, you roll a number of dice, and on a 4+, it either does a wound to a dreadnought or does a glancing hit. So these are very much your dedicated vehicle and dreadnought destroyers. I think it gets 3 shots off the top of my head. Don't quote me on that though. But you can take up to 3 of these in a unit. So 3 of them, on average, you are probably killing a vehicle by just glancing it to death and doing quite a lot of pain to a dreadnought as well. So, I mean, it's not the cheapest unit in the world, but that is something that your opponent's going to have to really keep an eye on, and gives the Mechanicum some good utility for killing things like dreadnoughts that are quite hard to chew through. So yeah, really, really like them. I think they're going to be quite some fun. Moving on to heavy supports, we get the kind of the big chunky stuff. So the Thanatar Siege Automata. This is similar to, I guess, the role that the Leviathan plays in Astartes armies. Big chunky robot. It is automata, so it can't do reactions, but it packs a range of different weapons, so you can tool it out for different kind of roles in your army, which again is pretty fun to see. Again, toughness 8, 7 wounds, 2+ save, and a deflector on it as well. It's going to be quite hard to chew through this thing. Yeah, and the model looks really cool as well. I really quite like that. So yeah, there's a range of different things you can give them. The Myrmidon Destructor Host is very similar to the Elite Choice, but they've got some bigger weapons, so conversion beamers, graviton imploders, darkfire cannons and irradiation engines. Conversion beamers are really good, so basically the further away you stand from your target, the more damage it does, basically. So you can have these just set up in the very corner of the board and just keep pummeling a target with some, you know, high strength weaponry. So they're quite fun as well. We then have the Carachnus assault tank. This is the thing with the big launcher on the top of it. It's a really nice weapon. I think off the top of my head it's blast 5 inches, it causes pinning, it's got shell shock on there, it's flesh bane as well. So again, this is a real kind of like harass infantry units and force them to pin. If you absolutely need something pinned, this is the unit for the job. 225 points isn't too expensive either, so I quite like this. You can't take them in units though, so you are going to have to use one of your heavy support slots to take this as a dedicated kind of anti-infantry platform. And there's a lot of cool heavy choices within the Mechanicum list as well, so you might be torn on which of these units you want to take. The Krios is their kind of like mainline battle tank. The standard version and the Venator tank destroyer are being folded into the same kind of like option here. You pay an upgrade in order to get the tank destroyer, and basically one of them's more kind of like anti-infantry and one's more anti-tank. Again, pretty decent stats on it. The only thing to watch out for is the rear armour's only armour 10, and unlike a lot of the other Mechanicum units, it doesn't have flare shields, so it's a little bit more vulnerable compared to some of the other vehicles that we've seen. Now, a nice surprise that we get in the book is Knight Moriax as a heavy support choice. 200 points each, they can be given a range of different weapons, and you can have up to 4 of them as a single heavy support choice, and that you can then have them acting independently during the game. So really like these. The models look really cool, and it's nice to be able to include some armigers without having to you know, necessarily dedicate some of your Lord of War choices in order to get some of those more kind of brutal weapons. So really like those. Toughness 7, 6 wounds, 3+ save. They don't have line, which the Questoris armigers do. We'll see those in a little bit. So these are very much a more dedicated heavy support option rather than something that's trying to take objectives and the like. As you would expect, we get a whole load of Lord of War choices. All of the kind of like Mechanicum flavoured knights are included in here. It's worth saying at this point, you can take any Lord of War choice from this book as a Lord of War for the Mechanicum. That includes the kind of the Titans and the Knights that we'll see later on. This section kind of contains the more themed Mechanicum units. So the Megaera, the Styrax, again they've all got very similar stat lines to what Knights had in the previous edition of the game. So armour 13, 12, 12. They've got 7 hull points, which is up I think from before. They have got flare and ion shields as well. The ion shield basically gives them a 4+ invulnerable save to the front and 5+ to the sides, but they get nothing to the rear, and that's only against shooting attacks. So it gives them a bit of protection from range. If you can, you know, throw dreadnoughts or something, dreadnoughts at them, and it's probably going to go down fairly quickly. But again, gives them a bit of defence from the shooting, and you know they're pretty good in a fight as well. So you know, I quite like those. Everything at the Atropos with this big kind of black hole singularity cannon, and the Acastus at 625 points. Again, with it being a bigger engine, that one's got a bit of a better profile with armour 14, 13, 12 and 9 hull points. Again, the weapons on this are really cool too. We'll look at those in a little bit, the twin link conversion beamers, but essentially again, if you can put this on the very back of the battlefield, off the top of my head I think the maximum range, the 5-inch template, and it gets to fire 2 of them, strength 10, AP 1, with a host of cool rules on there as well. So yeah, really like them. That's a nice choice to fill out your Lord of War for your Mechanicum army. We then get the more kind of wacky stuff, the Ordinatus, Ulator and the Appendices. These realistically you're not using in any kind of small games. Even in a 4,000 point game, the Ordinatus isn't going to be kind of legal to use, and really you're probably going to be using these more in kind of showpiece narrative battles. But you've got the rules to take them. they've got some ridiculous weapons. The Ulator basically fires a pyre plate across the board. It goes the entire length of the range, and every unit it passes over gets hit by it, with a load of ridiculous rules. This thing is got the big drill, so it's got a transport capacity of 42, and you can use it similar to the termite of using it as a deploy method. So yeah, really, really cool. Again, you're not going to use them in any small games though, really. So moving on to the appendices, we get quite a few fun additions to the main army list here. Firstly, we get a couple of characters that are traitors, and again this represents them at the start of the heresy, and it suggests that we might get different rules for them as the Liber Mechanicum kind of takes form and things take a bit of a more sinister turn. This essentially lets you use these characters with the core Tagmata list, which I imagine a lot of existing players will do. We've not had a Liber Mechanicum list as such yet, with only Scoria really being the only kind of Liber Mechanicum character, and again the rules in here do reflect them kind of at the start of the heresy, so that's exciting. I hope that we see some kind of like supplement maybe covering that, and the book certainly hints at that. So Drakovic is a really cool Archmagos. He gets a unique weapon, the Liquefactor, which is really, really cool. Basically you roll 2d6 and compare it to the toughness of the target, and it takes wounds in excess of the toughness. So you're fighting something with toughness 6, you manage to roll a 12, it will take 6 wounds. So yeah, pretty cool. I really like that, and they're AP2 as well. So with a lucky roll, you can do reliable damage to Primarchs and Praetors and the like. So you want to watch out for this guy. He also has a bit of an aura. Cruel Taskmaster. If a unit within 12 inches is pinned, they can instead sacrifice a model, and they're not pinned. They a guy just dies. So that's pretty fun. My favourite of the two though is Arachnorus Scoria. So this is the big weird spider scorpion thing, and he is frankly amazing. I love him so much. So awesome profile, toughness 7, 7 wounds, ballistic skill and weapon skill 5. 2+ save. He's kind of like, I guess, the equivalent of a Primarch for your Mechanicum army. His Warlord trait is really, really good. So friendly units with the automated type within 6 inches ignore the restrictions for not being able to make reactions. So surround this guy with a load of big chunky robots, and yeah, when you use that Mechanicum advanced reaction, all of those units within 12 inches can fire back at the firing unit, so that makes him really, really good. Now interestingly, and this may need FAQ in, he doesn't have the option to pick one of the right equivalents on his profile. I think that may be an oversight, because I suspect that he'd be the Cybernetica one, but I can't see it on his profile, so I do wonder if that's hidden maybe in a piece of war gear that I've not spotted, or it's just been an oversight when they've written him. From a lore point of view, it absolutely makes sense that this guy would have line Castellix robots. I suspect that's the intent, but rules as written, I can't actually see that, so I think that'll probably be FAQ'd and clarified there. He's also got a really cool weapon, strength +2, so he'll be hitting it at strength 7, AP2, Armour Bane, Exoshock 4+, and Murderous Strike 5+ as well. So yeah, really like this guy. I'm going to have to pick him up. He looks an intimidating one to build and paint though, but he should be fun. So we then get the Titan Legions. Like I said earlier, you can take these as just a Lord of War slot for your kind of standard Mechanicum force. If you want to contain multiple Titans though, you can take a Titan Maniple. Now this is a optional detachment, so as written, this is intended to be taken alongside a primary detachment, and again, you still have to stay within your Lord of War allowances. So realistically, you're only bringing the Titans in a game of what, tens of thousands of points, which a lot of people do play of Horus Heresy. You're not going to be seeing a 3,000 point Titan army fighting a 3,000 point Space Marine army. Again, it wouldn't be fun for the Marine player because they can't scratch the Titans. So this kind of limits these guys to the big games, but allows you to make a little kind of army around them. So you've got a compulsory Lord of War or troops, and then you've got an optional 2 HQ, 6 troops and 3 Lords of War. For the HQ we actually get a new unit, the Secretary Axiarch, and he basically kind of buffs all your Secretary. At the start of the game there's a number of different bonuses that he can give to all the units on the battlefield, so you can kind of like tailor what you're fighting, so that's pretty cool. We've got the hoplites and the peltasts that we had. I don't think they were in the previous Mechanicum book, but they were added later on in some of the big black books. So they're added as troop choices now for your Titan Maniple. And then obviously at the big boys, the Warlord Scout Titan. At 750 points you can fit this in legally in a 3,000 point Mechanicum army, so that's a really nice option if you want to bring a Lord of War. I've got a Warhound and a Reaver myself that I really want to desperately fit into an army. Likewise you can stick it into an Astartes army as well if you want to. Armour 14, 13, 12, 12 hull points. It's a beast, it's a Titan, it's really cool. We get the Reaver in there as well. The Warbringer Nemesis has been added because that's a newer kit that's come out since the last Mechanicum book was out. And then the Warlord Titan at 3,000 points. So again, realistically, you're not using this in anything less than a 12,000 point game. But it's cool that you get the option. Obviously you can, you know, house rule that or put on your own narrative kind of events. I would say if you are doing something like that, make sure that your opponent knows that you're bringing Titans. Heresy is more of a kind of narrative game, it's more about the story. So if you do want to have a small marine force holding out against the might of the Titan legions, absolutely do that, but make sure that your opponent can maybe build some counters into their list in order to face them, because they don't want things getting too silly. Which brings us nicely on to the next army list within the book, the Questoris households. So this is the knight army for the Horus Heresy, and things have changed quite a bit. Where all the other armies really, the points may have changed a little bit, but the construction of your army is much the same. Construction has changed quite a bit for the Questoris households. Mentioned with fighting a Titan army that you could be in a situation where maybe you're not able to harm them, and that's not necessarily a fun game for everybody. They've switched things up a little bit by having compulsory armigers within a Questoris force. So for every Lord of War that you take, so that's your big knights basically, including the plastic knights from Games Workshop, you have to take 2 troops choices, and a single armiger is a troops choice. That's a nice way of doing it, because it means that there's going to be units on the battlefield that any army can take on, even if they can't hurt your knight. So it means for a more fun playing experience. You can take that as a primary detachment, so you can do an entirely nice army. You can also take that as an optional detachment, so you could take 2,000 points of, I don't know, Dark Angels, and then take 2 armigers and a knight as your kind of optional part. In a primary detachment, you can ignore the Lord of War allowance for knights, so you don't have to try and keep within that 25% for the knights that are part of your army, just your additional Lord of War choice if you want to take one, such as, I don't know, you want to take a Warhound with them as well, that would come out of your Lord of War allowance. Alternatively, you can take a single knight as a Lord of War choice for any army as well, so they're quite flexible in how they go together. Again, they can take an allied detachment too, so if you want to do a mostly knight force and take a Mechanicum detachment with them as well, that can be done, or Space Marines, or whatever you want to take. So yeah, pretty fun. I like this. So the armigers, you've got the Warglaive and the Helverin. Again, using the existing plastic Games Workshop kits. They've actually, I think today, these go up for pre-order, reboxed with some Heresy era transfers in as well, which is a really nice way of doing it. Now obviously this new construction is going to mean that every existing knight player is going to have to get some armigers, unfortunately. For every knight that you take, you're going to have to take 2 of these. That's just how the list's constructed. I do think it's good for the game, because these guys have got line, so these can score for you, but toughness 7 and 6 wounds means that they're not out of reach of being killed by your opponent's army, so they've got something to focus on and stop you from scoring, and that's a really, really good thing. So yeah, really fun. We then get the Knight Questoris, which is basically your generic knights, and this can build any variant from the standard Imperial Knight box from Games Workshop as well. So again, you can make a fully plastic 30k Knight Force, and if you've got an existing Knight Force, again, it's pretty cool. It means that you can bring these along. In addition to this, you also get the profiles for the Knight Lancer, Knight Castigator, Archaon, and the Betharian, along with the Styrax, and then the Maghera, Atropos, and the Acastus that we saw earlier. Again, any of these knights can be taken in any force, just thematically they fit the Questoris Knights more, so that's been all included there. Again, profile wise, very, very similar to the previous edition of the game, so they've got a couple more wounds here or there, but essentially they've got the same armour value and the same kind of real rules that interact with them. So yeah, I really like them. You can also give them various upgrades as well to kind of like personalise the ranks of your various knight pilots. I know a lot of people will maybe be a little bit, I guess, disappointed that they will buy some armigers to make their knight army legal, but honestly I think it's a good thing for the game. If you were facing an army of just knights and you weren't prepared for it, there'd be situations where you wouldn't be able to take them on at all. So now that there's going to be some armiger targets that you can take, and obviously for you as a knight player, those armigers have got line and can score objectives as well, means that for you can take these to an event and still have a fun game with your opponent. So it's a nice mid-ground between having a whole army of Lord of Wars and having a few squishier targets that your opponent can take out. So I think that's a good change. I really like that, and yeah, I'm going to have to kind of expand up one of my 40k armies and kind of make it 30k compliant. So that's pretty fun. So as with the other books, we get quite a chunky appendix section going through some of the new different unit types that are added to the book. Mentioned cybertheurgy earlier. Like I say, this is kind of like works very similar to psychic powers in that essentially a lot of these allow you to give up shooting in order to get a different buff or a bonus. You can try and push it, but there's a chance that you take some damage if you try and get a bit too reckless with it. So that all looks really, really fun. We also get the Orders of the High Techno Arcana. This is your equivalent to Rites of War. Your Archmagos can take one of these, and there's a list of various ones that they do different things. A lot of them are about kind of army construction. So for example, the Archimandrite allows you to take an allied Mechanicum detachment, essentially allowing you to kind of double up on your Archmagos Prime, because that wouldn't be allowed within a single detachment. So you take an allied one from a different Forge World that's subservient to your one. So that's cool. Cybernetica is one that I think a lot of people are going to go for. It gives Castellix line, which is amazing. Combine that with Arachnia Scoria, you've got line, Castellix that can make reactions as well, which is really, really cool. They also reduce the benefit of cover, and they can also take wounds for your independent characters too. So Cybernetica is one that a lot of people are going to go for. I think that's going to be fun. Like Remata is another cool one. Basically it lets you use your Battlesmith rule on infantry units, and there's different things you can do with that. So restore wounds to infantry and that kind of thing. So that's pretty fun. We've got Macrotech. These guys can repair buildings in addition to vehicles with their Battlesmith rule. They can also reposition scenery on the board as well, which is pretty fun. Malagra are they're kind of the religious fanatics that are trying to uphold the will of the Omnissiah. As such, they can take special scouting tech priests, and they can also have additional Architor Magisterium for 110 points each. So while that's normally a 0-1 choice, these guys can take 3 of them, so that's pretty fun. The Myrmidax is the kind of host all around the Myrmidon destroyers and the Myrmidon Secutors. The Secutors become a troops choice and the destroyers become an elite's choice, so that's pretty cool. It also gives the Myrmidors line as well and increases their to wound by 1 in close combat, so that's a really nice one as well because I really like those Myrmidar units. Reductor are all about blowing stuff up, so their Battlesmith can be used to do damage to buildings, which is pretty fun. And then we get all the kind of special rules that interact with the various things in the book as well, just like with the Space Marine one. But in the first few games you can have a little bit of flicking back and forth between this book and the core book, but after a few games you tend to remember what these special rules do. So they're all listed out, along with all the various war gear options that the Mechanicum have, and they also have all the weapon profiles in here as well, and there's some really fun weapons. So we called out the heavy conversion beam cannon of the big knight earlier, so if you're more than 42 inches away it is a strength 12 5-inch blast at AP1 and blind, so yeah, really fun stuff on there. So yeah, that is a quick look through the Mechanicum book. Like I say, very similar format to the other Marine ones, and again I look forward to seeing what they do for the Imperial Army, for the Custodes and the demons and all that kind of stuff. What I would say is that I don't think the Custodes and the demons are going to be anytime soon, but I suspect we will be getting PDFs for them. Games Workshop have said that, you know, any of the books that are going to be a while away, there will be some rules to allow you to use them. So yeah, I'm super excited to start a Mechanicum Force. I really hope that we get some of the options in this book as plastic at some point. Certainly some of the kind of like the core important units as well, so your troops choices, the transport maybe. I don't think it's going to be anytime soon, but I'd like to think that once Games Workshop kind of work their way through the core Marine units, they then give some love to some of the core units in this and the other Horus Heresy books. So yeah, that was a quick look over the Liber Mechanicum. I do have a full accompanying write-up over on spruesandbrews.com as well, so if you're interested, check that out. We've got a load of Horus Heresy content on the site as well, so we looked at the other 2 Liber volumes. We've got the Sakaran and the Ranged Leviathan up for pre-order today with videos on them. And yeah, write-ups on the website for all that stuff. So if you've enjoyed this, why not give us a follow? We do loads of kind of unboxings and reviews and stuff like this. And we are going to be doing some battle reports and like in the future. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. Massive thanks to Games Workshop for sending us a copy of the book for free a little bit early ahead of the release to have a look at. And yeah, hope you have a great weekend and start working on a Mechanicum army. See you soon.